Testing, testing.
The anticipation. It's like, God, I know. I'm friggin' nervous. Always. Yeah. It's like once I'm out there, it's like, yeah, sure. They're just getting into final prep, and then when they come down, I think it's like the easiest cue. Okay, so yeah.
Sunlight.
It's very warm in here.
Yes. Not as warm as it is in the office, though. It was 81 degrees.
Oh, I turned on the air at one point, and then I got cold because I was wet from the rain.
Yeah.
And like, it was one of those just like, oh, but this is dumb. It's still, there's nothing bringing you in.
Yeah.
But also there's enough people here who work in facilities in the shop that I feel like someone back there has a better chance of affecting the climate than I do.
Yeah. Yes. It's probably wise. You got other things to worry about.
I want to encourage everybody who's standing there to take one.
I think that you're entitled to a Diet Coke.
I prepaid earlier for it because I knew I was going to want
They did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Right. You know that.
Fine.
Yeah.
But should I switch these guys up? No.
That's okay.
And then we'll do the receiving line right here.
Starting with this gentleman here.
Okay.
Okay. He will come up. Oh, all right. This is your hand to serve to.
Okay.
We'll happily accept donations for speeding up our elevator.
It's an elevator that's saying it better than yeah.
We on? Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. If I could ask you to please stand for our national anthem, which will be performed by Kathleen Fletcher and Jessica Underwood Varma.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated, and thank you so very much. On behalf of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, we'll try to catch that cell phone. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome you to this very special naturalization ceremony. My name is Phyllis Coven, and I'm the District Director for the New York District Office of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And it's really my honor to serve as your mistress of ceremonies today. I would like to recognize the members of the dais, Samantha Power, the United States Ambassador to the United Nations, to my immediate right, Dr. Morris Vogel, President of the Lower East Side Tenement Museum and our host, the Honorable Judge Robert Katzman, Chief Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and Leon Rodriguez, Director of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. Again, I very much would like to thank, on behalf of the agency, the Tenement Museum for hosting this event today. And again, it is now my pleasure to introduce the president of the Lower East Side Tenement Museum, Dr. Morris Vogel, who will offer welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Director Coven. You know, this building that we're in opened just 5 years ago to better serve the Tenement Museum and to allow it to to grow, to allow it to fulfill its mission, which is to tell the story of the immigrants who built this country, to tell that story to more people and to tell it more effectively. We opened this museum with a naturalization ceremony, and Chief Judge Robert Katzman presided then, as he has at every one of the naturalization ceremonies we've held every year in order to mark our continued growth and our continued, the role we play in American life. It's a privilege to welcome you all to the museum, and especially to welcome those of you about to become new American citizens. The Tenement Museum tells the stories of generations of newcomers who followed their dreams to these tenements. They struggled here in often difficult circumstances and often in the face of adversity and even hostility to build new lives, creating families, raising and educating children, building communities, and making this magnificent city and this wonderful nation what they are today. Much of what we think of as America's genius, our open society, our democratic institutions, our cultural creativity, our economic vitality, and our ability, when we are at our best, our ability to live among different people, those grow out of our experience as an immigrant nation. Those are the stories that we tell in this museum to 250,000 visitors every year. The museum has always been about how people from many nations brought their hopes to this country and about how Americans became a people. This country wasn't formed by first settlers or by the Native Americans that they encountered. Its destiny was not set in stone by the Revolution or by the Western frontier, by the great factories of its industrial past or the bounty of its agricultural heartland. All the museum's programs are based in the premise that the central fact of this nation's history, the very central fact of this history, is that from the beginning and into our own time, this nation has continued to shape and reshape its identity, to always forge its future anew. That's why when you entered this space today, you came through construction scaffolding. We're building new exhibits upstairs that will bring the story of immigration into the present day. We'll be adding the stories of refugees seeking asylum from the devastation of World War II, who made their homes directly above where you are sitting today. Of Latinos who swelled New York's population in the closing decades of the 20th century, and of Chinese immigrants who came after the United States ended racially restricted immigration in 1965 and made this city the largest Chinatown outside of Asia. So you see, we're continuing to build a nation, to build a museum, because the story that the museum tells is still incomplete. So too is this country. What we will become depends on what you do as you become our fellow citizens, as you become our fellow Americans. We're proud that you have displayed confidence in us by moving here and by taking steps to become citizens, that you have chosen to join with us in building this country and burnishing its ideals. America depends on the ambitions that have brought you to these shores. It depends on the energy and drive that allowed you to successfully pursue citizenship. It depends on the vision and intellect and compassion that will allow you to play your roles in making this country much greater and much stronger than it already is or that it ever was. Thank you for your willingness to join your dreams to our shared future. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Vogel. Now for the reason we are here today. Candidates, in a few moments, you will recite the Oath of Allegiance, which marks the final step in your journey. For more than 220 years, taking this oath has led to American citizenship. Some of the language that you will recite dates back to 1790, when the first naturalization laws were passed, and it will sound somewhat like that. So, are you ready? To make it happen, I will now invite Director Rodriguez to join me for the presentation of the candidates.
Thank you, Phyllis. Candidates, I'm going to call your countries of origin. As I do, I will ask each of you to stand and to remain standing until the conclusion of the oath. Australia, Belgium, Canada, Colombia, France, Greece, Iraq, Israel, Italy, Japan, Lebanon, Pakistan, United Kingdom. Each of these 15 candidates has been personally examined under oath by a designated officer. Each has demonstrated an understanding of the English language and knowledge and understanding of the fundamentals of history and principles and form of government of the United States. Each has been found to be a person of good moral character, attached to the principles of the Constitution of the United States, and well disposed to the good order and happiness of the United States. The investigations of the government have been completed in their cases, and each has been found to meet all requirements of the law. Judge Katzman, the candidates are ready to take the oath of allegiance.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by the law. That I will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the United States when required by the law. That I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by the law. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help me God. Please sit. My fellow citizens. My fellow citizens, how good it is to say that. Our country, this great country, as Director Vogel said, is even stronger, even greater than it was just minutes ago, because you are now here as our citizens. How fortunate we are to have you here, contributing your hopes, your aspirations, your dreams, your skills, your heritages, your culture, your food, your music, your literature to the tapestry of this nation. Indeed, this nation's tapestry is you. I cannot tell you how proud and privileged I am to be here with you. I know that the immigrant story is often one of great sacrifice. I know something about the immigrant experience, being the son of a refugee from Nazi Germany and the grandson of Russian immigrants. I can still hear the accents and voices of my youth. My family members, like you, who believed in this country, who with their toil, their sweat, their loyalty and conviction celebrated being citizens of the United States, who made lives here, who built their families here, of which I am a beneficiary, and of which your children will be beneficiaries. Let your children and their children know your stories, be enriched by your cultures, your past, as they enjoy their lives as Americans. The American story is your story. We are, as I said, a tapestry of cultures and diversity. I know that for many of our newest citizens, many of whom who have been scarred by oppression, hunger, war, and fear, I know that they understand, you understand deeply the values of freedom of speech and worship, the right to vote and change governments peacefully, and the guarantees of due process in a court of law. My father, who experienced Nazi, as a teenager, experienced the Nazi tyranny, told me of the great feeling he had when he got to this country, of being free, of not having to fear being accosted on the streets because of his religion. Understanding that past has only fortified my own resolve to ensure that ours is a country that remains true to its principles of justice for all. Too many of us who are native-born take for granted the freedoms we enjoy. For native-born Americans, there is no conscious moment when they choose to be a United States citizen. They are born that way. But for you and the nearly 700,000 new Americans naturalized by federal judges every year, thanks to the wonderful work of Phyllis Colvin and her team and Director Rodriguez, the experience of citizenship is quite different. After intensive study of civics and English, you raised your hands and swore to defend and support the Constitution and laws of the United States. You are, by being here, a living civics lesson to all of us. And as you, our new citizens, raised your hands and pledged to defend the Constitution, the rest of us should take a few minutes to reflect on the liberties that it grants us, to realize that we must be ever vigilant, more vigilant than ever, to protect those liberties. As you will find, many of you share that commitment to ensure justice for all. An immigrant, Carl Schurz, once said, "Our country right or wrong, But what he said afterwards is something you should keep in mind. When right, keep it right. When wrong, set it right. That is your responsibility as Americans. A great judge of my court, predecessor as Chief Judge, was Learned Hand, had a good first name. Actually, his first name was actually Billings. His middle name was Learned, but he realized that there was an advantage to be calling Learned. So the time was World War II, 1944, if you can imagine the scene. The great defense of liberty by the United States in the fight against Nazism, fight against the Japanese tyranny. The setting was Central Park and the swearing in of new citizens. Judge Hand spoke of the spirit of liberty, which gave our immigrants, he said, the courage to break free from the past and brave the dangers and loneliness of a strange land. Liberty that is understood as freedom of oppression, freedom from want, freedom to be ourselves. Judge Hand said, the spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the minds of other men and women. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which weighs their interests alongside its own without bias. The spirit of liberty remembers that not even a sparrow falls to earth unheeded. I have no doubt that the spirit of liberty will thrive with you as citizens. To become a citizen, you have passed the civics test, indeed every test. You know more about this country than most citizens. You know more about this country than most people who went to vote. This is a country, after all, where 10% of college graduates think that Judge Judy is a Supreme Court justice. Because of your personal histories, you have a special feeling for the freedoms and liberties and rights in the Constitution. And as I said, as citizens, you will be able to register to vote, serve as a juror, enjoy all the protections afforded by our Constitution. You will keep this country great. You will make it better as you assume the responsibilities of citizenship. And as my father would say to me, it is each of our responsibilities to keep this country great, to point out where things need to be improved, to ensure that our freedoms are vital for the generations to come. So, to you I say the American dream is about aspiration and achievement. As our next speaker, Ambassador Power, can attest to. I wish for you here, as my family would wish for you, my family of immigrants, every success and happiness, and that all of your dreams for yourselves and your families will come true. I am so deeply grateful for the privilege of swearing you in as citizens, and I congratulate you.
Thank you, Judge Katzmann. And now I would like to invite USCIS Director Leon Rodriguez to come forward again for the presentation of our American by Choice recipient.
Thank you, Phyllis, and congratulations, new citizens. Before I came down here for the ceremony this evening, I was talking to Ambassador Power, and she asked me if I ever become emotional at these ceremonies. And I go to about 4 or 5 of these a month in my time as director. And I told her that every once in a while there's something that happens that catches me, that makes me emotional. And in fact, that did happen tonight when Kathleen Fletcher and Jessica Underwood Varma were singing the national anthem. They sang it in a style that impressed me as reminiscent of the Andrews Sisters, a vocal group that was famous here in the United States in the 1940s. And it transported me back to this place in the 1940s, made me imagine what it was like as it was teeming with immigrants from Italy, from Poland, from Russia, from all over Europe, and imagining in those tiny apartments upstairs the hopes and dreams that were realized out of those apartments. It made me think about my own family. I actually was born probably 1.5 miles from here, just on the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge at Long Island College Hospital. I was born 10 months after my own parents came as refugees from Cuba, fleeing their government. My father had been arrested before he was able to get out of the country, as had been my maternal grandfather and my maternal great-uncle. And it made me think about President Obama. I stood next to him at a ceremony just like this one about a year ago, and he shared the idea that immigration is our origin story, and that, as Mr. Vogel suggested, it is immigrants who reinvigorate this country, who energize this country, and make it what it is. And certainly one such immigrant is here with us tonight, and it is my pleasure to present her the Outstanding American by Choice Award. This is a recognition that U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services bestows periodically on a naturalized citizen who has made significant contributions to their community and adopted country in the areas of civic participation, professional achievement, and responsible citizenship. Ambassador Samantha Power is the U.S. Permanent Representative to the United Nations. That's a really big job. And a member of President Barack Obama's cabinet. At the United States Nations, Ambassador Power works to advance U.S. interests, promote and defend universal values, and address pressing global challenges to global peace, security, and prosperity. Prior to this role, she served as Special Assistant to President Obama and Senior Director for Multilateral Affairs and Human Rights on the National Security Staff at the White House. In this role, she focused on issues including UN reform, LGBT and women's rights, the promotion of religious freedom, the protection of religious minorities, the combating of human trafficking, and the promotion of democracy and human rights. Before joining the U.S. government, Ambassador Power was the Anna Lynn Professor of the Practice of Global Leadership and Public Policy at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, teaching courses on U.S. foreign policy, human rights, and UN reform. She was also the founding executive director of the Carr Center for Human Rights Policy at Harvard. Ambassador Power began her career, as if this wasn't long enough, as a journalist reporting from places such as Bosnia, East Timor, Kosovo, Rwanda, Sudan, and Zimbabwe, and contributed regularly to the Atlantic Monthly, the New Republic, the New York Review of Books, and the New Yorker magazine. Ambassador Power immigrated to the United States from Ireland at the age of 9 and became a United States citizen in 1993 at a naturalization in Brooklyn, New York. She is a Pulitzer Prize-winning author of 2 books and has received many accolades and awards. She received her undergraduate degree from Yale University and a law degree from Harvard Law School. It is a great honor to be able to present to Ambassador Power the Outstanding American by Choice recognition.
It is such an honor to be here, and I thank you so much for choosing me for the award, especially because it gives me the chance to be a part of a ceremony for these 15 new Americans. I'd like to start my remarks just with a few stories. Akram Razouk was a university student in Beirut when Lebanon's brutal civil war broke out. It was not long before the army and militia were going door to door, enlisting every able-bodied man and boy to fight. Akram dreamed of studying medicine, and with his professor's encouragement, he applied for a visa to go to the United States. He never expected to get one, but he did, together with a spot at a medical school in California. Akram left Beirut carrying a few $100s, 2 pairs of pants, and a few shirts. He was 19 years old. 2 days after he arrived in the United States of America, soldiers showed up at his family's home to conscript him. It was 1973. In 1952, Chok Wei Wang was 15 years old in Taishan, China, when he heard that the Communist Party was coming to register new members in his village. Not wanting to be there, when they showed up, he fled to Hong Kong, where he spent most of his family's savings on a boat ticket to America. When he arrived, he and the other Chinese passengers aboard were quarantined on Angels Island off the coast of San Francisco. Eventually allowed to come ashore, he made his way to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where he started working in a Chinese restaurant run by his relatives. He eventually returned briefly to Hong Kong to marry before going back to Iowa, where he took on every shift he could in the restaurant, pinching pennies so he could bring his wife and newborn daughter to America. In April 1945, the U.S. Army liberated the German town of Halberstadt from the Nazis. American soldiers went house to house, making sure that there were no Nazi soldiers hiding inside. One door was answered by a 12-year-old named Horst Rahut. Horst had lost 4 members of his immediate family in the war: 2 brothers who died fighting on the Eastern Front, a sister killed in an artillery strike, and his father, a firefighter, who was killed in an air raid. When Horst saw the U.S. soldiers on the doorstep, he figured they had come for revenge. But the Americans were respectful and generous, even sharing some of their food with him, something he never forgot. After the war, Horst became a chemist and married a girl from a neighboring town that had also been liberated by Americans. As they started a family of their own, they watched the Berlin Wall go up and saw tensions rise again in their country. Fearful that their children might have to suffer through a war as they had when they were younger, they applied to come to the United States. In 1964, Horst, his wife, and their 2 young daughters boarded a flight to Washington, D.C. Here, my last story. In 1901, Joseph Steinberg left the shtetl in Kyiv, Ukraine. The Jewish residents there were routinely the target of mob attacks called pogroms. He set out for America to build a new life for his family. He left behind a pregnant wife and 2 children and made the journey to New York, where he built a wooden pushcart on wheels from which he sold eyeglasses. Customers would simply try on pairs until they found one. This is impossible. Until they found one pair of eyeglasses that could help them see. It took Joseph 3 years to sell enough glasses to send for his family, including his youngest son, Morris, who he had never met. Picking his family up at Ellis Island, Joseph brought the family to their new home. It was in a tenement building on Rivington Street, just a few blocks away from where we are today. These are the stories of just 4 individuals who, like those of you who have become citizens here today, made a journey to become citizens of the United States. There are millions of stories like them. There are 15, I guarantee you, sitting right here. And taken together, these stories are the threads that weave together the rich and intricate fabric of our nation. A nation that is now your nation, and in which your thread, which runs back through your ancestors, will now be a unique part. Now, because I could have told a lot of stories, you might be wondering, why those 4 stories? Well, I picked these stories because these are the families of 4 of the many people who now serve with me in the U.S. government at the U.S. mission to the United Nations, helping represent our nation, the United States, to the world. Remember Akram Razzouk, story I started with. Akram, who fled Lebanon's civil war to come here to study medicine in California. His daughter, Kelly, is a U.S. career civil servant and a leading human rights expert at the U.S. mission. The baby daughter, whom Chok Wei Wang worked endless restaurant shifts in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to bring here from China, was named Cam. She's been serving in the State Department for 25 years, the last 2 years with me here in New York. Horst Rahut, the 12-year-old, whose town was liberated by American soldiers during the Second World War, eventually came to America, where he and his wife had their 3rd child. That boy, Mike, went on to study at West Point and is now the highest-ranking military officer at the U.S. mission to the UN. And Joseph Steinberg, who sold eyeglasses on the streets around this museum to get his family out of the shtetl. Is the great-grandfather of one of my closest advisors, Nick Steinberg. Before I lose it further, let me ask the 3 of the individuals I just named, Cam, Mike, and Nick, to stand up. They're here with us. I couldn't be more honored to get to work with these amazing public servants every day. 37 years ago, as well, my family also came to this country as immigrants from Dublin, Ireland. I was 9 when my mother, my younger brother, and I landed in Pittsburgh. I remember thinking that I had never seen a bigger or fancier place in my life. 14 years later, in a courthouse in Brooklyn, having studied for that test, having been terrified about that test, I became a U.S. citizen. And for the last 3 years, I, an immigrant, have had the privilege of sitting behind the placard that says United States of America at the United Nations. Now, you may think that I have picked exceptional stories of people who work with me at the U.S. mission to the UN. But as we heard here, every U.S. government agency is made up of people whose families made similarly remarkable journeys. And it is not just the U.S. government that looks like this. It is the teachers who educate our children. It is the doctors and the nurses who take care of our sick. It is the workers who staff our businesses from factories to high tech. Everyone, everywhere you look, this is what America looks like. You are what America looks like. And as much as any other quality, this is what makes this country so exceptional. Today, you too have become citizens of this nation at a pretty tumultuous time, as you may have read in the newspapers. For some of you, this may be a day of mixed emotions. I suspect many of you were drawn to this country not only because of the opportunities it offers, but also because of the principles that it stands for and strives to live up to. A nation built on the values of freedom and justice and the idea that all citizens have the right to be treated equally and with dignity. And yet, we have just come through an election campaign, in which some of these very principles have been called into question. We've heard politicians, public figures, and citizens call for people to be treated differently because of what they believe or because of where they were born. We've heard immigrants blamed for many of our country's problems. Sadly, this is far from the first time. We are a nation of immigrants, but for as long as this amazing country has existed, people have been hearkening back to a mythical golden era before families like yours or mine got here. It never seems to matter to those people that their own parents and their own grandparents were often on the receiving end of similar discrimination when they first arrived in this country. But even if we know deep down that such intolerance is as old as the nation itself, as every nation, it doesn't make it hurt any less when we experience it. And it doesn't make us any less concerned or any less afraid when we see a spike in reported hate crimes as we have in just the last week. I imagine that this most recent stretch may have led some of you to ask whether this is the America that you thought you were joining. It may even have led a few of you to reconsider whether you wanted to become U.S. citizens. Yet a week after such a divisive election, here you are, taking this critical, beautiful step. Since I have a couple decades head start on you, I hope you will allow me to offer just a few parting thoughts on what it means to become American, and just as important, what it does not mean. You may hear some people say that in order to become real Americans, you need to forget where you came from or leave behind the history that brought you to this moment. Cover up your accent, change the way you dress, stick to neighborhoods where immigrants like you live. Please don't listen to those voices. Joining a new nation does not mean you have to leave behind the one you came from or what it taught you. Every one of those individuals whose histories I shared at the outset here today is a better citizen and a better public servant because of the values that their immigrant families brought with them from other places. Kelly Razook fights harder for the freedom of political prisoners because she knows her father may well have been one of them had he been unable to leave Lebanon. Cam Wong treats every single individual who walks through the doors of the U.S. mission to the UN with decency, regardless of who they are or where they're from, in part because she remembers how much it meant to her Chinese-speaking mother when shortly after arriving in Iowa, a neighbor knocked on her door and offered to teach the family English. Nick Steinberg is driven to work harder on behalf of refugees fleeing violence and persecution because he knows what would have happened to his relatives if no country had taken them in. And Mike Rahoot is an even better military leader because he carries with him the indelible lessons of his parents' experience of being liberated by soldiers who treated them with dignity and compassion. The same goes for me. The qualities I rely most on as a diplomat and in my most important job as a mother of two small children are ones I learned from my mother and father, both of whom are Irish immigrants. My father's sitting here with us today. All of this history is what makes our citizens and our nation so exceptional. Why would we ever want to give that up? So don't listen to those who say you have to choose between being a proud American and a proud immigrant. You can be both. You must be both. Of course, even as you're careful not to give up a sense of where you've come from, you mustn't let that be the only thing that defines you. Of course you have your roots, your family, your faith, the parts of you that no matter where you go will always feel like home. But while those roots will always anchor you in the ground, they are also what allow you to reach the sky, if only you let them. In this amazing city of ours, you have a unique opportunity to engage with people who are so different from you, just in your little cohort here today. Engage them, get to know them. You'll be surprised how much you can learn from them, and of course they from you. I believe that one of the reasons our nation feels so divided of late is because this mingling, this engagement isn't happening near enough. Not just among immigrants, but among all Americans. It's easier to fear others if we never have a chance to talk with them. When we get to know them, we're often surprised to discover that beneath all the parts on the outside that appear so different, there is so much on the inside that is the same. And the more we learn to see ourselves in our fellow citizens and walk around in their shoes, the less it becomes us and them, and the more it becomes just us. Now, you may also hear some people say that because you haven't been here as long, you somehow deserve less of a say in shaping our nation. Nonsense. As of today, America is as much your country as it is any other citizen's country. That is your right, but that right, like all the others that are now yours, comes with a profound and enduring responsibility. And on that responsibility, I would like to close with a brief story, a familiar story some of you may have even learned in studying American history for your citizenship exam, and a story that feels particularly relevant in these times. In 1787, a long time ago, delegates from 12 of the United States' 13 colonies gathered in Philadelphia's State House with the aim of reforming their government. They spent more than 4 months wrangling over the document that would eventually become our nation's Constitution. When the news spread that they had finally reached an agreement, citizens rushed to the State House to learn what had happened. As one delegate, Benjamin Franklin, walked out of the building, a woman stopped him and asked, "Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" Franklin quickly replied, "A republic if you can keep it. A republic if you can keep it." Now, Franklin was a founding father. Few had done more to define the principles at the heart of our then young nation. Once he felt the Constitution, as he put it, was near to perfection in reflecting. But even then, even a founding father, even Franklin, recognized that whether the United States lived up to those ideals and succeeded as a nation would not be determined by any document or even any government, but rather rested in the hands of America's citizens. Not by words on a page, but by the actions of real people. A republic if you can keep it. A republic if we can keep it. We, citizens. In a moment, I'm going to be asking you to place your hand on your heart and pledge allegiance to our republic. As you do, remember where you came from and draw strength from it. Don't let anyone tell you that because you're a new citizen, you are a second-class citizen. We only have one class of citizens here in America. And remember that allegiance is about much more than just abiding by a system of laws. Today, you are sworn into what the great Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis once called the most important office in our land, that of private citizen. The office of private citizen carries with it an awesome responsibility and an unparalleled privilege of being one of the individuals empowered to keep our republic strong. The fate of our nation, your nation, and everything it stands for has and always will depend on it, depend on us. We trust that you are up to the task, and we welcome you to this country with open arms. Now, as your first act as American citizens, I would ask that you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, and congrats.
Thank you so very much for those beautiful remarks. Now, if the moment you've really been waiting for is it's time to give you your certificate of naturalization. If I could please ask Ambassador Power, Judge Katzman, Director Rodriguez, and Dr. Vogel to help with those presentations.
Okay, Omar Ghanim Dawood Al-Khattab. Faizan Izzat Baig. Pascal Nicole Claire Brown. Yves Olivier Cochet. Lior Erez. Erica Bethany Kagan. Toshiko Kobayashi. Stuart James Alexander Leitch. Liran Mayer Mezan. Shiv Kumar Paul. Rosanna Pisucci. Julian David Christophe Richard. Giovanna Marcela Romero. Ghassan Abu Samra. Konstantinos Varsos.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to all our new United States citizens. Nobody does this alone, and we'd like to recognize all the family members and friends who supported you in attending today's ceremony. Please. Please also join me in thanking Dr. Morris Vogel, Judge Robert Katzman, USCIS Director Leon Rodriguez, and Ambassador Samantha Power for being a part of this very special ceremony. We at USCIS have a real understanding of the path you and your family have chosen, and we share in your pride and sense of accomplishment today. Our sincerest congratulations. Thank you for your commitment to our country, and this concludes our ceremony. Congratulations.